All right, so you guys understand that? You guys get that? You guys are pumped? But this is really, 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 really cool stuff. And so let's say I look at like a practical application of it, and then I want to get into some really, really, really powerful phrases you can apply like right now, which is super cool. So like, think for example that like a waitress brings you like mashed potatoes when you order French fries, right? And you're like, I got mashed potatoes, but I ordered French fries. Like, instead of doing what most people do and like freaking out, like what if you just like say, hey, I'm sorry to trouble you, but I prefer French fries. And she'll probably reply, hey, no problem, not a big deal. We'll go back and change the potatoes because you've shown respect for her, right? And you haven't really criticized, like you don't want to say, hey, you messed up, I can't believe you did this. This is a really, really powerful concept before we get to these phrases. That totally changed my life, especially when I was having a lot of trouble. Like with my mom, like it was just really, really, really bad situation. And it all came down to this one word that caused so many arguments and so much negativity and so much anger. And it took me like years and years and years to overcome this word and to change my diction and to change sort of my state of mind. Everything kind of came from changing this one word in my vocabulary, and it totally skyrocketed my relationship with my parents. I mean, it used to be awful and it went to being absolutely berserk amazing. And it all comes down to the word you, because when you say you, what's it do? It makes people feel defensive, right? It makes them try to defend themselves. It makes them it's just like criticism, right? And it's a negative, it's an awful thing to do. But when you use you say you did this, you did blah 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 blah, I can't believe you, it attacks other people. And so what you want to do is you want to replace you, at least with your criticisms, right? Like obviously it's important to talk about other people and you guys know that, but with like any kind of problem or any kind of difficulty or maybe some kind of challenge where you get potatoes instead of French fries, instead of saying you want to sort of, and it's a tough thing to do at first, and I know it's a tough thing to do because I had to work through this literally for years and it was a really, really, really difficult transition. But if you guys can make this transition, it'll totally change everything in your life, and it's just so powerful. You want to sort of, take yourself, maybe you think, right now, at least for me, like I was always on this pedestal, right? You want to come down from that pedestal. You want to belittle yourself and put the other person up on a pedestal. And if you've got like a negative statement, say, I, blah, 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 blah. So instead of saying like, you're really annoying when you yell at me, say, I'm not a huge fan of how you're talking, right? Or whatever's going on. And now you're sort of dissociating the action from the person, right? So you want to say, I really get hurt, when people are yelling at me, right? You say that and it dissociates, you're hurting me by yelling at me. I don't like it when, I get yelled at. It's mean, right? You focus on how you feel. And what's really cool is when you're transparent about your feelings, you're transparent about your emotions, and you frame it in a state where you're saying it's your, I, and you're framing these negativity things onto you, not on the other person. What it does is it lets the other person dissociate themselves from their actions. So they can sort of create this barrier between themselves and what they're actually doing. And then they can objectively look at the world around them and say, wow, maybe this is a bad thing to do. Maybe I should change. Versus if you just attack them, like they're not going to change, right? They're going to totally ignore you. And so the goal is to sort of dissociate the action from the individual. And the way you do that is by, what most people do is they'll say like, you must stop doing that. You are blah, blah, blah. You are annoying. You need to turn your phone off, blah, blah, blah. And what that does is it makes them feel like you're attacking them, when in reality, all you want is someone to stop doing maybe this one specific action that's, hurtful, distracting, or whatever, right? And so if you say, I have some teachers and they'll like yell at the whole class and they'll be like, you guys are so loud and so annoying, blah, 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 blah. And like that doesn't help, right? Like, do you think that like, it's not going to fundamentally change the actions of those individuals? Because those individuals, they care about who the most? They care about themselves the most. And if you attack somebody and you say, you're doing this and you're bad and you must stop, like maybe in the short term, they'll listen to you, but I've seen this go on for literally years and years and years. And the behavior never changes until these individuals can make the simple mindset shift from you to I. And they can express their true feelings. And they can say, I remember that this one situation, and it was so powerful. It changed my whole mindset about this idea of you versus I, and it was totally game changer. His teacher said, I really don't like it when people talk, because when they do it, it reminds me of this old school I used to teach at where no one would listen to me. and none of the kids could actually learn any of the material. And so instead of attacking the kids and saying, you must stop talking, she says, I feel bad about this. She tells a story about why she feels bad, why she has this internal connection with what she's actually speaking about. Not once does she say, stop talking. Instead, she just tells a story about herself and about, because like you want to dissociate the person from the action. That's exactly what she does. And the way that this teacher did it was by like talking about her old students, right? And then you can look objectively at the old students as if they were, these individuals, they're in the position of a student, they're in the status of a student, they're in the role of a student, but they're looking at other students, not themselves. And they're looking at other students' actions, not their own, even though the two are parallel. And she's showing them why these actions were bad for these other people, and by contrast theory and by comparison, she's implying that they're bad for them, but she's not implicitly forcing them to change their actions, not implicitly forcing them to become a different person. And instead, what she's doing is so powerful, and it's so key, is she's sort of giving them this epiphany that, wow, maybe I should change that action. Not because of defensive criticism, not because of force, but because this person is kind of shown me that there's a better way. And in this concept, it applies in literally all aspects of your life, and it is totally changed everything for me. I remember, like, when I made this transition from, saying you're doing something wrong or you need to stop this. It was just a really bad way to communicate with other people. Versus like with criticisms and with negative situations, just like this example with the waitress who gives potatoes instead of French fries. Instead of saying you mess up, say and then tell a little story. I prefer French fries over potatoes, right? And if you can just make that one simple grammar change, like, dude, it will literally change absolutely everything. It's so powerful, so huge. Oh my God, it's just something I wish I knew so many years ago. Because what it does is it lets you sizzle down arguments and conflict so much easier by focusing on not what the other person has done wrong, which they already know most of the time, 99% of the time, but instead of focusing on like your story and what you do wrong. Because people, they want to feel like they're on a pedestal, and if you degrade yourself by saying, I can't stand it when blah 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 blah, instead of you need to stop blah 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 blah, blah, what it's gonna do is it's gonna shift the anger and the negativity away from this person and towards you. And it might be tough to do at the beginning, and I know for me it was tough to do at the beginning because it made me humble myself, and it made me bring myself down. And I really had a tough time doing this, but the moment that I was able to do it, it totally changed everything. And all the arguments in my life just suddenly disappeared because they were completely diffused by my simple ability to sort of manipulate words in a way that you can do too, that will allow you to take this anger and this frustration and intentionally direct it towards yourself and then completely ignore it. And what it does is it lets the other person kind of pump out their negative emotions and steam out their negativity. And instead of like actually arguing, you'll do that for them by the simple act of calm conversation. And it totally changes everything. And it all comes from using I when you're talking about the things that you don't like. Because in reality, that's what they are, the things that you don't like. And the other person, maybe screaming and yelling at people is super fun to them. But if you can just show them your side of it, instead of attacking their side of it, you're gonna have a much more compelling argument, really in any kind of professional or personal situation or conflict or negotiation that you ever have, by focusing, at least with these negative aspects, which again are not necessarily what people mostly want to talk about. Like most people want to glare over the negativity, and I want to glare over the negativity. This one concept is so huge, and what it does is it allows you to glare over the negativity because you use the concept of saying I when you have a conflict. And what it does is it sort of, eases the conflict, and it goes away faster and faster than ever before. And it's one very simple strategy that can totally eradicate 99% of negative conversations and negative conflicts in your life and allow you to focus exclusively on being in that peak state, focusing entirely on positive emotions and quality developments in your life, which is just ridiculously powerful. It all comes from I went to probably hours and hours of therapy to get this one simple trick, this one secret out, and it's literally changed my life. And if you can take, if you want someone to change their actions, if you want to criticize somebody, and so many people, they have this urge to criticize other people. If you can just stop for just a moment, and instead of you know, saying you do just you, just reword that into an I statement. It'll make the other person much more apt to actually do what you want them to do. And it'll also give a ton of respect between you and the other person, right? And that respect is absolutely crucial in any situation. We see it here, we see it with the volunteers. I mean, that respect will change everything, because what it does is it builds a quality relationship. It's founded on a strong core understanding of one another, and allows you and the other person to really connect with one another and really understand where you're coming from and understand the background behind your decisions that are going to lead to that best future possible for both of you, which is so huge. I mean, guys, this is insane. It changed my life when I realized this one thing. And Carnegie says it too, you know, she says, hey, you know, this waitress, she'll probably reply, no trouble at all. And she'll be glad to change the potatoes because they show respect, right? And it all comes down to kind of using these little phrases that can really sort of make somebody, you know, especially like if you're making a request and maybe you haven't had the time to add a whole lot of value. Like, great example, I was on the phone, I was doing a bunch of business calls in an Uber, and I needed this lady who was driving to turn left, right, at the end of the ride so that we would get to the right place. Because the maps always kind of mess up